Hey, and welcome to Matt and Jess TV. I am Matt Roast.
And I'm Jessica Bun Bun.
This is our reaction and review for the premiere of The Hunting Party on NBC. This is a show that originally was supposed to premiere in February.
Mhm.
The network apparently decided, okay, you know what? We have a big NFL game. This is probably going to be one of the last times to try to get this show a big audience. We believe in it. We're going to give it the good lead in. This is what I am hoping is true.
Yeah, and after watching this premiere, it feels like that is what is true. This show has a lot going for it
Yeah.
already in just this one episode. I mean, that set of the whole underground prison silo was quite incredible. It
Yeah.
felt like they really put a lot of money behind this to make this look good.
Yeah, and if you guys know and you've been at the channel for a while, then you know that one of the greatest shows for Jess and I to discuss was The Blacklist, which also aired on NBC. We loved it. We theorized about it for years. I'm not saying that this show is The Blacklist. It's very hard to have any show without James Spader and kind of compare. But whether it is the red logo, whether it is the fact that this episode is named Richard Harris after the criminal, whether it's the premise, there are a lot of Blacklist similarities that are going to be made here.
Yeah, I mean, we've heard from you guys over the years and us as well that
Yeah.
we miss the Blacklist so much. We love that show.
Yeah.
And there has been nothing that has been brought to network TV that is anything near the Blacklist. And like Matt has said, this is not the Blacklist. I mean, James Spader is the Blacklist. But one of the things that was also really great about the Blacklist was the premise. And it was this idea that you had sort of this group of agents that are getting together and trying to find people, these terrible criminals that are on this blacklist of Reddingtons. And over here, we have a premise that is quite similar. We have a group of people coming together, an ex FBI agent, someone who worked at this prison, all coming together as this ragtag team to bring back the people that are on the list that escaped from this prison. And the thing that the Blacklist did really well, and this show is already setting up to do really well, is that there was a big overall mystery to the show, the Blacklist, and seemingly here. And with network TV, the past few years have felt very much like they're afraid to do something like this, where they're going to have case of the week, of course.
Yeah.
But then you're also going to have this big mystery that's going to be threaded throughout the entire series. And that's what makes this show, for us, when we saw it and we watched the pilot, we're like, oh, it's not the next Blacklist, but it's definitely in that same realm of having a case of the week, but having a big mystery as well and chasing after bad guys. It feels like we're back in it.
Yeah, we're going to talk in this video further all about what we liked about this first episode, where we hope it goes, but also some theories about the big overall mysteries here, which seemingly include, okay, why are all these prisoners being kept here in secret?
Yes.
And then how in the world are they getting out? Like, who's
Yes.
responsible for that? Like, these are a couple of huge questions. But before we go further, be sure to hit that subscribe button, because we are going to be here discussing The Hunting Party, sharing some theories, watching this show evolve, because often shows do change pretty dramatically after the pilot when you kind of figure out what worked and what didn't. So we're expecting a lot of that, and we want you guys to be along for the ride.
Absolutely. We're also covering Dexter here. We have White Lotus coming up, Yellow Jackets. There's all kinds of great TV coming up here at the channel. So hit that subscribe button.
Okay, let's start with just the base foundation, because a show like The Hunting Party only works if you have a lead who you're interested in following. And here we have Bex Henderson, who is this character played by Melissa Roxburgh. If you've watched Manifest, you know who she is. If you did not watch Manifest, you probably have no idea who she is. But she is this agent who has started off this episode working in a very different sort of position, shall we say. But I kind of thought that was a fun way to bring us into her world.
Yeah, there's a lot of mystery behind how she ended up not working for the FBI anymore, how she ended up working at this casino, her backstory with Odell and this sort of case where it was just like, oh, yeah, this ended up in a situation where we were able to rescue Sam, who became her adoptive daughter. But it was done in such a way by Odell that Bex just couldn't stand behind it. And it seems like Odell also wasn't working for the FBI anymore. This is a very contentious relationship.
Yeah.
She watched him interrogating somebody to be able to try to find this girl, and it worked. But then she also watched him set him on fire, and that he was able to stop that fire but didn't, even but though he got the information before he let this person burn. These two people could not be more different, even though they were working together. It is going to be very interesting going forward to see how they're going to be able to kind of work together, because the big reveal at the end of this episode that was like, oh my God, was that he was the warden of this prison before everybody escaped.
The way that this show is going to work is that occasionally it needs to throw realism out the window a little bit. And you need to have these sort of interesting, larger than life characters. Like The Blacklist does a really good job, or did a really good job of sort of making a lot of people feel almost like comic book characters in their own right, where they had monikers and traits that were really, really huge. But here, the idea that you have this FBI guy who set somebody on fire and is now running this like insane institution where they're keeping these most dangerous criminals. It's like, all of this is completely crazy, but it's also really compelling to see this facility exist on a network TV show, that Odell is sort of pulling a lot of the strings. I just hope moving forward, now that we have this big Odell twist that you've mentioned, that they're going to give that actor, Nick Westler, who's been on Revenge and some other things, like, he's a good actor, but I want to see him go even bigger and darker and more mysterious and kind of build that character up, because he's one of the big question marks now.
Yeah, because we also don't know what was going on in this prison. I mean, we saw, the big bad Richard, he ends up getting, killed. But right before he gets killed, he's basically trying to tell them, you don't know what they're doing to us there. There was things that are happening to us there that they know about, that they're not telling you about. And it's like, okay, you're this terrible person who's done these terrible things, and then these secret things are happening to you in this prison. It makes me really look at Odell in a very, under a microscope, because it's kind of like, we know what he did in front of Bex. But the fact that he was an agent and he was willing to go over the line to kill somebody when he didn't have to get that information, to then see that he's going to be put in charge of a place like this that is housing the most dangerous people, and they're doing some sort of experiments with them. We don't know what yet, but we know that he's capable of doing some bad things. So how much does he know? Probably a lot. I know the guard there, Shane, is like, oh, we don't know what's going on. They tried to keep us all apart, blah, blah, blah. We're going to talk about Shane because I don't trust him. But I feel like Odell, as the warden, knows exactly what is going on and who it's happening to.
Until this show tells me otherwise, I'm looking at Odell as the big bad of everything that's going on here. And there are a lot of interesting theories you can already get into when it comes to what's happening at this prison. So everybody get your tinfoil hats. We are starting
tinfoil
immediately.
Hats. Okay, what's going on at the prison?
Okay, I've got two different ideas. I will admit that I lean more towards the former, and I think probably the reason for this is I play a lot of Japanese role-playing games, and this whole twist I'm about to mention is straight out of one of those, where everybody in this facility apparently is one of the most notorious, dangerous criminals of all time, and
all the people Reddington couldn't catch.
Yeah, these are we're in our head canon. That is exactly what is going on here in the extended Blacklist universe. But no, these people are all really, really dangerous. But one of the things we know about experiments a lot of the time, especially on TV where things are over the top,
Yeah.
they're often being run by these mad scientist sort of figures who think that they can play God. And I
Mhm.
kind of feel like what could be going on here is that somebody has come up with this idea that they can effectively change people's hearts, their entire demeanor, completely turn them around to come up with this new sort of way of solving crime where they can quote unquote rehabilitate everybody and
Mhm.
heal the world by healing the criminals and making them all into good people and functioning members of society, and that they legitimately believe that they can do this at this facility. Either Odell is running it, that he's behind this idea, or it's just that he is the de facto leader because he believes that all of this could happen and that this is maybe what is going on here. And there's a real reason why they wouldn't want to reveal any of this to the public, because the methods that they're doing are probably really, really terrible. And if it doesn't work, and certainly doesn't seem like it's working right now,
No.
they don't want anybody to know about it.
Yeah, I mean, they did kind of say, and I don't know how much to believe, obviously,
Yeah.
because they're kind of like, okay, we got to still kind of keep it a secret, but they kind of just gave this base of like, okay, we know that Richard was supposed to be gone and dead, and that's what we told everybody, but really we put him over here, and
Yeah.
the experiments that we are doing are for good. We're learning about killers, what makes them tick, why, how to be able to sort of catch them before they do anything. You've seen the statistics,
Yeah.
like they've gone down, and they've gone down because of the great work that we're doing over here. And it's like, okay, you're not telling the whole truth.
Yeah.
Like, it feels like you're probably telling 90% of the truth, and all the best lies are shrouded in some truth so
Yeah.
that they're more believable. I think that is probably what the intention is, but they're not telling you what they're doing to these people. And that's where it starts to get dark, over the line, things that you shouldn't be doing to people, things that they would never be able to say that they're doing to people, illegal things that are not okay to happen to people, right? And that's where we get into Shane,
Yeah.
where I'm kind of like, I'm so on the fence about him. I think he started this fire. And I wasn't sure if it was like he started this fire because he became really close with some of
Mhm.
the prisoners. I mean, he was even like, "Oh, I know Richard better than anybody. Like,
Yeah.
I should be on this team because I know him so well. And, without me, you won't be able to have sort of the inner workings of him,
Yeah.
but you do because you have me," kind of thing. And he was just like, maybe manipulated by some of the prisoners, that then he's like, "Oh, I got to free everybody," and he sets the fire. Or if he doesn't agree with what the experiments are, that he's like, "Yeah, these are bad people and they probably shouldn't be out, but nobody deserves to be treated like this. So I'm going to free everybody and start this fire." I think they want us to believe that
Yeah.
Odell did it because we saw him set someone on fire, and it's
Yeah.
like, oh, he set someone on fire and now this place is on fire. Of course it's Odell. But I feel like the show is going to be a little bit smarter than that.
I hope they're a little bit smarter than that.
I hope so.
It feels like on paper they've devised some sort of plan that we're going to see play out here over time. And because this is season one, it's a mid-season show. This isn't going to be some huge 22 episode order. So they're going to have to move some things along reasonably fast. Yeah, like I don't trust Shane either for one reason or another. Like we're either looking at somebody here who has been convinced that the criminals are the good guys and he's just like extremely warped, or he's somebody who is basically being his own version of Batman, where he thinks that, okay, what's happening to these people is over the line and there needs to be something else that is done about it.
Mhm.
But I think he's clearly letting off, he knows a lot more than he's letting on. And I'm already partially annoyed about him because I just feel like I kind of know what the show is going to do in the short term, because they've cast this kind of good looking guy who's having these conversations with Bex that seem a little bit more personal. It's like, okay, you're setting it up so that these two are going to be love
Of
interests. And then
course.
eventually, he's going to do something to reveal that he's not who he says he's going to be. It's just like, once again, hunting party. Please don't do this if we can telegraph it now.
I'm just so hopeful for this show
Yeah.
that they are not going to go there. I feel that they're going to go there as far as like he's going to be the love interest. They didn't cast a hunky
Yeah.
guy for no reason, right? Like he's there to be a love interest. But I just really want the character to be more than he presents, which is just like, oh, I was a guard there and I can really help you guys. And then he does, and that's all there is. I feel like there's got to be more to it. Do I want him to see him be like super evil and it turns out
Yeah.
he's just working with Odell and that he's in there to kind of manipulate Bex? I don't want to see it turn
No.
out like that. But I mean, that would be pretty interesting.
It would be interesting. Like, there's this other kind of crazy theory that I have in my head here, that everybody in this prison is actually being trained to be these really even more dangerous criminals for somebody who wants to use them to sort of control the world, which
Yeah.
I don't necessarily know if I want them to go that far. Like, that seems a little bit too, like, mustache twirling. Look at my bad guys.
There has to be something else going on in this prison. It can't just be
Yeah.
this is for rehabilitation. But that, because if it is, then why are you keeping it a secret? Just because of the methods that you're using, it has to be a secret. Like if it's like, oh, we're gonna take Richard, he's not gonna actually be, put to death or whatever. We're going to move him over here instead.
Yeah.
We're going to learn from him. We're going to try to figure something out. Then why not just say that unless you're actually trying to do something else?
Couple questions here about Richard. First and foremost, Hunting Party writers, why did you name this guy Richard Harris? Because I just think of, and this is an extremely
It's the
dated...
name of my old boss.
It's also the name of the MacArthur Park guy, and it's just like, this is the most dated reference possible, but it's just like, every time I see, I just hear, I left my cake out in the rain over and over again. Also, why does this guy look like Walton Goggins? I have a lot of questions.
Oh, he really does.
I was just like waiting for him to come on here and being like, well, actually, I am not in this prison. My name is really Boyd Crowder. I don't know how I ended. And it's just like, it totally blew my mind just looking at this guy. But the other thing I'm sort of wondering, not just with Richard, but big picture here, is that, okay, if Richard knew that there was more going on here and, hasn't said anything, can they find somebody else, another prisoner who will be more willing to talk? Are they going to be too afraid to say everything?
Yeah. And I mean, how many people are actually still out there? They're like, yeah, we have a list. But I mean, that fire that went up in the silo, I mean, it really hit a lot of people. So it's just like, how many of them really did escape and how many didn't? I guess it depends on how many seasons they want. I know the Blacklist was like, oh, there's 200 people or whatever. So that's how far we can go. But here it's kind of unlimited at this point. That silo looks like it goes deep.
That's what's really fun about this premise, is just like, if for whatever reason they ever reach the point here where they feel like, okay, we can't get away with there being any more prisoners, there can be another prison break. Like, you guys can figure out some other way to kind of constantly recycle it.
For sure. There's no way that this is the only place that's doing this. There has to be more of them.
I think that
maybe I've just watched too much Silo over an Apple TV where it's like, nah, there's not. There's just one. No.
We've watched way too many of these things in general. Like, we've already gone past the point of no return.
I know.
It's just, I think this show has a really solid premise. They've set up a good mystery within this first episode that they can pay off a little bit more and more over time. Like, my fear is that it's going to become too procedural, just because networks are very reluctant and afraid that if they make anything too serialized, that people are not going to be able to keep watching. But it's just like, NBC in particular, you guys did This Is Us, and it lasted for 6 seasons, and it was not procedural really at all. Take a risk, and I say the same thing to the Hunting Party too. Make these criminals as weird and as memorable as possible.
Yeah, like for this being the first sort of case of the week kind of thing.
Yeah.
I enjoyed it. I don't need it to be as crazy as the Blacklist with some of the weird stuff that was going on there. Like, do we need to talk about that robot episode that you loved and only you loved?
Love it.
You on an
Ironically,
island by
I
yourself
ironically loved it.
on that robot
It
episode.
was so bad it was good.
Oh my God, I wish I could forget it.
No.
But like, I felt like this was a really good twist. I did not expect that the person who was actually behind all of it was Richard's sort of last victim that they thought was a victim, but was really controlling it all. I mean, if you guys figured that out, definitely give yourselves a pat on the back and let us know in the comments, because I actually didn't feel it coming until she's looking around seeing all the sunflowers. I was like, oh my God, how did I miss this?
It was a pretty good twist for a first episode, and that tells us that this show is capable of it. I think in general, all I'm really asking for out of a network TV pilot at this point is not everything is going to be the Lost pilot, which, is one of the greatest ones of all time.
All time.
What you just need to do is do enough within this episode to convince me to watch another week. And really, once you get past episode 2, episode 3, 4, that's when people really start to make a commitment of like, okay, am I going to keep watching this long term or not? Because shows, especially first year shows, they improve a lot as they figure out what works. I think that this was a very good start. Yes, I think they can do more to flesh out some of the supporting cast. Some of the characters are kind of getting a little bit lost for me beyond Bex at this point, but it's just one episode. Like, there's a lot of time in order to do that, so I'm willing to wait and see what they do.
Yeah, there was not enough time in this episode to flesh out all the supporting characters, and I'm fine with that. I'm not here for the supporting characters right now. I want to know what's going on with Bex. They have a big overall arc of like her relationship with Odell, his relationship with this underground silo prison and what's going on, plus the mystery of who started this fire and why, plus the mystery of what are they doing to the prisoners that are in there. That is 4 overall story arcs for an entire season.
Yeah.
That feels pretty good to me.
Yeah, I'm pretty satisfied coming out of all this, and I'm hoping that they can keep up the pacing and make these reveals really, really worth the wait. Because we all know with the Blacklist, the one thing it did not do is stick the landing and give people answers in the way in which they really wanted.
Oh my God.
Sorry, I didn't mean to drug up bad memories that we all have about that.
Yeah.
But that's where we are coming out of the hunting party and this big premiere. But what did you guys like about this first episode? Do you have any theories as to where things could be going? Let us know in the comments. Hit that subscribe button for more all season, and you can support us further by joining our Patreon. That link is in the description. Exclusively there, we are covering The Pit on Max, and coming up, we also have Prime Target on Apple TV+. Thank you, guys. We'll see you here next time.